What's the tea with ACP? Here's the tea with ACP. That's kind of cute.
Well, you're right. It is kind of cute. And welcome back to What's the Tea with ACP, where we are a web-based series where we feature artists and chat about what's going on in their lives, their art, and their social experiences. This week, we have one of my best friends and an amazing colleague, Joshua Conyers. Before we meet Josh, I have to tell you our topic of tea for today. What is our flavoring? What is our tingling taste buds telling us about the tea today? And the tea of today is dependability. You'll learn about the definition a little bit later. And this edition of What's the Tea, we'll discuss with operatic baritone Joshua Conyers, his life as a performer thus far, what led him to become an artist, and how the pandemic has influenced his art. Thanks for joining us for the tea. So before we begin and bring Josh on, we will read his bio. Now, he has a very extensive bio, so bear with me as I read through this beautifully written work. Also, if you haven't noticed, I'm giving you extra energy today because she's tired boots. So bear with me. Baritone Joshua Conyers has been hailed by Opera News with a deliciously honeyed baritone that would seduce anyone. And the New York Times is having a, quote, sonorous baritone that, quote, wielded and seduced. Mr. Conyers, a native of the Bronx, New York, is quickly being championed for his captivating performances as he continues to be recognized as one of the promising young dramatic voice of today. Equally active in contemporary opera, Mr. Conyers performed the role of Jason in the world premiere of Matt Bowler's 75 Miles and Uncle Wesley in Carl Simon's Night Trip for Washington National Opera's American Opera Initiative. Mr. Conyers covered the roles of Mr. Umea in the American premiere of Huang Ruo's Dr. Sun Yat-sen in Mandarin Chinese, and Walt Whitman in the world premiere of Theodore Morrison's Oscar, both with the Santa Fe Opera. Mr. Conyers is an Atlanta Opera Studio player at the Atlanta Opera for the 2021 season. Joshua performed the role of Tonio in Roger's Leoncavallo's Pagliacci and discovered Kaiser overall in Victor Ullmann's Der Kaiser von Atlantis. In the summer of 2020, Joshua performed the role of Eustace in François-André Duncan, Féodor's Le Marchal Ferrand, the Blacksmith. Correct me if I'm wrong when you come back on, Josh. You know, languages aren't my strong suit. With Opera Lafayette, Mr. Conyers was a member of the Kefritz Young Artists of Washington National Opera, a program of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in the 2018-2019 through 2020 seasons. Joshua performed the roles of First Priest in The Magic Flute, John Sorrell in The Consul, covered the Reverend in Jean Tesori's Blue, Jim and Jake cover in Porgy and Bess, Giorgio Germont in La Traviata, British Major in Silent Night, Donkey in The Lion, The Unicorn and Me, and Zaretsky in Eugene Onegin. Mr. Conyers performed Le Roi Marc in Franz Martin's Le Vin Herbe, a collaboration with Wolf Trap Opera and Washington Concert Opera. As a filing artist at Wolf Trap Opera, he performed Porgy in Gershwin's Porgy and Bess, a concert of songs, Ramiro and Maurice Ravel's L'Heure Espagnole, and Musicaire in Richard Strauss's Adorade Neaf Naxos. Monterone in Rigoletto, Count Capulet in Romeo et Juliette, and baritone soloist in Bernstein's Songfest, which was recorded by Naxos Records, which you can get on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere that you stream music. Mr. Conyers fulfilled his residency as a Benison Young Artist at Palm Beach Opera, performing Yamadori in Madama Butterfly, Morulo in Rigoletto, Sharone in Tosca, Captain in Candide, and covered the Comte Amaviva in Le Nozze di Figaro. I told y'all, honey, that she is everything. He is my boy, my friend. Please welcome Joshua Conyers. Hello.
Hey, Elliott Paige. Elliott with the two T's.
Listen, okay, your resume almost had me gagged over here. Okay, I was like, ooh. Let me get it right. So
It's long-winded, and you did a beautiful job.
no, it's fabulous because you're that guy. You're doing your thing. It's fierce.
Listen, I'm trying to do my thing. I'm not there yet by a long shot, but I'm working. I'm trying to work.
Listen,
And get there. Take care of my family.
You're doing the thing. Also, below, if you see what's scrolling, this is talking about the usage of the word tea. We actually usually put it at the beginning of the show, but I wanted to definitely highlight it because it's something that kind of has been coming up and maybe people don't know what it means. So just take a look at that as it scrolls on the bottom of your screen. So, Josh, I want to talk to you about what our tea is of today and give you a definition of
Absolutely.
the word and also kind of explain to you why I chose this word. Now,
Also, before you start, I just want to say that I'm happy to be on What's the Tea with ACP. Thank you for having me. I am ready for the tea. Let's get it. Let's go.
I love that. Thank you so much. Again, as I've told the audience, I'm running on steam. So I'm keyed up, as they say. Our tea for today is dependability. Now, originally, the word that I was going to choose was loyalty, but I kind of actually feel like this word fits what we're talking about today a little bit better. So, dependability is the quality of being trustworthy and reliable, right? And there's a piece of loyalty in that conversation. When we talk about, let me put the word up, dependability. When we
I like
talk
the
about
spelling too. Okay, a little bit.
right? We talk about being trustworthy and reliable. There's so much of our art form that requires us as performers to be trustworthy, dependable, reliable, all of these things, right? And sometimes there is a pull on the opposite end where the performer may not feel the same way about the other things, the other pieces of the puzzle that are happening around them, right? Like,
Okay.
I'm the corner piece, I'm always showing up. Are all the other pieces there, right?
For sure.
And so that's kind of one of the reasons I picked that today. But I want to ask you, what's going on? How have you been? Where are you? Like, give us the tea. What's the rundown? Where are you?
So I'm at home in Watertown, Massachusetts. So it's a suburb of Boston
Mhm.
with the wife. You can see her in the back. You see the little wedding photo. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
that. And my two dogs, my two little babies, your nieces.
My nieces.
And actually, this pandemic has been crazy, just like with everybody, and especially it's affected opera and the arts, especially it hit us really, really hard.
Mhm.
Most to every company has closed their doors. I was at the time in my second and final year at Washington National Opera when the pandemic really started in March. So and then interesting, I was doing two black shows, two shows that were around African American, plights and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Two shows where I was actually making a pretty penny, and I lost all of that money. It's a lot. I'm talking about like a lot of money that I lost.
Coins.
Yeah, some coins,
Nuggets.
that I lost from like three to 4 months of work, and that hurt. I'm more fortunate than others that I have a very supportive wife who does have a really good job. I couldn't imagine if we both, because she is an opera singer in training, went to school for it. If we both were artists and we had lost all of that money, and then it taking such a long time for artists to get the what was it called? When
PUA.
like you couldn't get unemployment, the PUA.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people taking a long time to even get the PUA.
Right.
It was terrible. And then luckily, WNO let the young artists continue, so I was still getting some payment from that
Mm.
all the way through to May, which
Mhm.
was a blessing. But then me and my wife got COVID-19. You know,
I
and
see.
that was horrifying.
Yeah.
You know, because the first thought is, am I gonna die? The heck with singing or our jobs or our careers or whatever. The first thought is, oh my gosh, am I gonna die? And then, luckily for me, I was kind of done with it after a week. But it was scary because I couldn't breathe. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Luckily, I'm a healthy boy, you know what I'm saying? But,
Okay.
I'm healthy though, you know what I'm saying? But I am healthy. So
Right.
luckily, I don't have any, illnesses or anything like
Right.
that. So, it kind of went away quickly with me, but I couldn't breathe. So like literally I was like singing every day trying to figure it out, you know what I'm saying? And like,
Mm.
breathing exercises. There were some doctor recommended things we were doing every day to help with our breathing and stuff like that, having these body aches. It was horrifying. But
Mm.
my wife, she had it like consistently for like 7 weeks.
Oh my
Like
God.
it persisted, and it was horrifying. And that leads to a whole nother like anxiety of what the last longing effects of. She started using an inhaler.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like she couldn't see a doctor because they were like, you're not severe enough. And
Wow.
like, what I'm saying, she can't breathe, but they're just like, well, we know, like, you're fine, you don't need to be in the hospital, so don't come in. You know what I'm saying? So that was rough.
Wow.
um and that sucked, but we got through that. God willing, we got through that.
Well, also when speaking about that, I think that it should be noted because obviously we're super close friends and I knew what was going on at the time, but they were being so safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
we
sheltering in
we
place, doing all the things.
we had not left our houses. Let me tell you, this is funny because bizarre, not so much funny, but bizarre. We hadn't gone out once. Only one time we went outside, and it was because we had a fire alarm in the building, and we ran out. We were like eating. We ran out with the dogs, half naked,
Come on.
and all we can remember is that like we had food all over our face. We got outside and we're like, oh, we have food all over our faces, and we like went like this, and then we got COVID, just like that. And we hadn't, since I had left
Mhm.
in March 12th, from DC to Boston. We were getting all of our groceries delivered. We did not go to the grocery store. We did not leave. We were in the house for a month, all the way until we got it in middle of April. We did not leave our houses once, except for that one time for a fire alarm, and we got COVID-19.
And that is a lesson to everyone to be aware, be careful, not even be responsible because it's things like that. Like you don't even you. It's like you're going out of your house because you could be in danger, and then you
Uh-huh.
become, So I think now, especially, people are even more aware because that was like toward the beginning of last year. So now I think people are even more aware that even in a situation like that, like grab your mask as you're going out the door, honey, because you really never know. And you really do have to be careful. And thankfully, thank God, my friends are doing okay. Um, and and also, I want to talk to you a little bit about. You mentioned like vocal exercises, breathing exercises, and I think that's actually a very cool thing to think about that in comparison to like breathing post COVID, like
Uh-huh.
different exercises. I mean, obviously your doctor gives you some exercises, but being a singer, you know what mechanisms to use to create the best momentum of the breath, right?
Sure.
So I'm wondering, how did you use your musical talents to help heal your body? right? Because that's basically what you did. You used the techniques that you learned as a musician, as a singer, to to help heal yourself.
Absolutely.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
So, I'm a firm believer that no matter what you are in your career as an artist, you never stop learning. So the first thing I did was call my teacher,
Mm.
and I had some lessons free because I had COVID. Yeah, I mean, pay your teachers, pay your teachers. You know what I'm saying? They need to be paid, pay them. But I was in a predicament, and so I had to figure it out. So, I mean, literally, I just sat down doing, like pulsing the breath, trying to expand the breath, breathing in the places where you can't control in the muscles, right?
Mhm.
So, I was just really working on that, like, bending over, feeling the expansions in my muscles and my back, working on the pelvic floor, just doing like just constantly breathing, doing blowing in the water exercises, with the cup with the
Mhm.
straw,
Mhm.
so that water vapor just like helps with just moisture and making the chords come together more smoothly. So I literally every day, me and my wife were just doing that over and over and over. And I really believe since I just was just more active singer, like my lungs were just expanding and expanding. And when I was done with COVID, I'm telling you, like I had like a good solid 3 or 4 months where I was feeling like great. I mean, I was feeling like because like in my mind, because I was kind of relaxing. I'm chilling on the couch for
Mhm.
a couple of months. It's sad. Like I'm still having like coachings and stuff,
Mhm.
at home, but because I'm still working at WNO,
Mhm.
online.
Mhm.
And so like, the motivation wasn't there. But after that, I mean, that kick in the butt where it's like, oh, my instrument is not working.
Mhm.
This virus is, kicking my butt. I was in hyperdrive, making sure that like this didn't affect my voice or this wasn't going to kill me,
Mhm.
So there was this period where I was feeling great. I did like a couple videos afterwards. I was like, oh, I'm singing down boots. And I was like,
Okay.
I was like, I was singing. But now I got a little lazy. I gotta get
Oh,
back to shit.
see,
But
see.
but I've been just even after that, I still was after all of that, COVID-19 madness. I still was very very fortunate during this pandemic.
Mhm.
I have throughout this pandemic, I have been working,
Mhm.
and not I mean I want to say like 95% of us in America, I mean all over the world, haven't been working. I finished in May with WNO, and then September, so I had a little break because my summer got canceled. So and then September, went out to Colorado and was working, and then I was also fortunate enough to be at Atlanta Opera because that started at the end of September. But since I was covering, I didn't have to. They weren't allowing the covers in the room for safety protocol. So I was literally in rehearsals in Colorado doing the blacksmith
Mhm.
in Mancos, Colorado, in the middle
Baby,
of nowhere,
middle of
no,
nowhere.
nowhere. But working and singing, like I was so grateful to be doing that because that prepared me to do Tonio, and Pagliacci.
Yes.
I couldn't imagine like stopping work from May, being depressed and anxious, and then getting a gig talking about shout out to the baritones who are looking out for me, who spoke on my behalf, Mike Mays, Reginald Smith. Appreciate y'all for saying like, hey, this Josh Conyers kid, this is the guy you want to be here covering and stuff like that. That's love, and so shout out to them. But that prepared me, that Colorado gig, to go into Atlanta because I was literally in rehearsals in Colorado and then watching YouTube
It's crazy.
videos of rehearsals of Pagliacci, and I was covering in Kaiser. I was covering in both. So I was doing 2 shows. So I was doing 3 shows at once. I
Mhm.
was in staging rehearsals for 3 shows at once. It was nuts. And learning 3 roles at once. It's like I got like all of these jobs. Well, like the Colorado job, I kind of got like it was still up in the air around like May,
Mm.
and then those two jobs didn't come until August or July, end of July, something like that.
Mhm.
July, August, but it wasn't really finalized. So like I was learning all of this stuff all at the same time, trying to get ready to do all of this stuff. So it's like, what can you do? Like, now like got to put my skills to work.
Also, speaking of skills, let me tell. Let me brag on my friend real quick.
Oh my God.
It is a rare moment when. Okay, so just let me give you a little bit backstory on
Get the backstory.
how Josh and I met each other. So we did. Was it PBO
Yeah, it was
first?
yeah.
PBO was first, so we did Palm Beach Opera together. He was a young artist. I was an apprentice artist. It was the first summer or not summer, but the first year that they ever had their second tier program, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Josh and I feel like bonded super quickly. Like, there's just certain people in your like life that it's like you connect with. That was Josh and I. And then we found out also that we were going to be at Glimmerglass together that summer, right? And then we ended up going back to PBO a second year. So we ended up spending like basically almost 2 years like hanging out together. And then the second year at PBO, we ended up being roommates. That was an experience. No, it was actually fabulous.
You miss me jumping in your bed in the morning?
Okay, I'm like, here. But it was actually fabulous. And we became like brothers. And, it meant a lot to me because I have a sister who I love and adore, but also I haven't really had, like, I have guy friends, but not like that kind of camaraderie space. You know what I mean? Where it's not like, that's my good girlfriend. That's my, he's like, so it meant a lot to me. But I mention this because this man can learn music so fast. Admittedly, I'm a little bit of a slow learner. Okay. I'm a little bit of a slow learner. But Josh really, he puts in the work. Like I was like, really, it was very inspiring to see because, a lot of times as artists, especially solo artists, we always see like the final product, or we see like in rehearsal with a coach. We don't see like the part where you're doing the work on your own, heading the score, doing the thing. And it was so great and inspiring. And he is definitely one of my musical my musical mentors, I should say.
Stop.
And whenever I'm feeling vocally, for lack of a better word, fucked, I'll be like, Josh, help me. I can't do it. I don't know what's going on. He's like, get over yourself. You got this. And I appreciate it.
Well, with that voice?
Oh.
Okay, come on. Okay.
Don't do me.
Listen, I want to cut. I want to cut when you start making that money. Okay.
You could get 0.02%.
0.2.
Pennies on the dollar. Okay. We have a little comment from Steven. Says yes, he can learn fast, but pretends he can't.
Oh, look. Okay, so Stephen Lacoste is actually one of my mentors.
Let me pull him up.
Who I love and adore. I call him my dad. And North Carolina School of the Arts, shout out to them. Marilyn Taylor, Jamie Albritton, Angela Ward, all of them. Stephen Lacoste is my daddy. And he always gives me a hard time. But it's a little niceness to to play a little dumb sometimes, okay? Because people listen, when you start doing stuff, people want more from you, okay? So
and you have to be like, that's a part of being like and learning as an artist. Like, yes, I can learn music fast. However, if I need to do it that way. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. Yeah, I was like,
like a lot of artists can learn music quickly, but they use that as like a behave
EMF,
yourself,
EMF,
okay? He said, love
EMF.
you too. That's so sweet. But it's interesting because I know a few, like some artists, they learn quickly and they use that as like a, not a crutch, but they wait right until the
They'll
last
wait.
minute and then cram it.
I
Um,
don't play that.
and you do not,
I
and
don't play that.
I love that. But the thing is, if you got hired last minute to learn something, I
That's right.
mean,
I did.
I'm
So
giving y'all the tea.
I did the
Companies.
I did the what do you call it, the workshop of Blue
Mm,
before they did it. Then they did it at Glimmerglass, which I wasn't a part of.
complex score.
And then that's what I was doing at WNO when it got canceled. I was covering again, but I did the I did the first parts of. I was there at the beginning stages when she wrote, the composer Janine Tazuri wrote like the father and son duet. Like I was there, like singing it for Francesca. I was like in Francesca's house singing that stuff. I mean, even though it's definitely not for me, I was like singing, like it's super low with the bass part. Couldn't sing it at all, but I was there singing. I was there from the beginning with that score, and then I got like called in last minute to do Blue, the workshop, the Reverend, which a much better fit. High is all get out, but much better fit.
Let me tell y'all something else.
Just calling me out.
If he wanted to be a tenor, he could. Let me just
No.
say that.
Oh my, no.
A dramatic tenore.
You know,
But
I have some notes, but I don't know if I can be up there all day. Okay, I can't be.
that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. He could pop up.
I can pop up. But I literally, it was. They gave me the score. Said you need to come out tomorrow, and you have 4 days.
Great.
So yeah, you know, and so I had to go to first rehearsal, sight reading. You know, and that's skills. Stephen Lacoste all on my butt, making sure you have these skills. Because Lord knows that I wasn't the greatest student. You know, I was always focused about being on stage, and you know, I had this natural skills. And I had teachers and people on my side. Luckily, a lot of people don't have that, who were like on my butt, like you need to have these skills if you want to succeed. You never know what comes up. And so I'm saying, like, whatever y'all learning in school, it's going to come up. You might think you might not need it, but these things come up. The sight reading, you know, all this oral skills, oral theory, all that stuff, you're going to need it. History, to learn your styles.
Is that augmented or diminished?
That's right. You got to play that little chord. Piano class. I was like, I hated piano class. I was like, I ain't gonna need this until you start. Okay, now how do I analyze this chord? I mean, I can give you a chord. That's about it. But like, I can't play. No, I ain't gonna try to play y'all. I can't play. But you know, you need that. Y'all, you just need those skills. You do. You need those skills. They come
Actually, talking about you as a student, what brought you to music being your passion? Like, you know, everybody's story is different, and I love asking people like, what got you, especially opera, especially being a person of color.
Yeah.
Like, we're from a similar area, like Virginia.
That's right. I mean, listen, you know, I say I'm from New York, but it wasn't until I moved to Virginia that I discovered opera.
Speak on it.
Well, let me hit y'all with this. We're gonna get a little. We're gonna get a little deep.
Tell us about your. Tell us
A little deep, a little bit dark. I know we've been happy, but I'm gonna tell you my first memory that I have. Like, remember my baby brother was asking me, "What's your first memory?" And my first memory as a kid is both of my parents were in. We had moved into a place. I would think I was around. This is right. So I was 5, I think, 5 years old. My mother was pregnant with my baby brother. Both of them were getting high. You know, they were, you know, products of the drug epidemic, the crack epidemic in New York City in the 80s. They're 80s kids. You know, they grew up, been through that. and it was unfortunate, and it took a hold of their lives for a very long time, all throughout until I left to go to college. Um, and the first memory I have, from my childhood, when I think back on it, is them getting high, my dad like overdosing, screaming in the hallways, banging on doors, saying that he's dying and stuff like that. Me and my brothers like hiding in a closet, you know what I'm saying? Like tons of violence. And that was that's just like the trauma in my head as a kid. And then from there, not being able to keep that place, moving around in the shelter system for a few years before the state of New York gave us a place in Jamaica, Queens that we stayed in. And this two-story, they gave us a two-story house because there's seven of us, my parents and five kids. And terrible neighborhood, but it was bad. So that was just like, that's the kind of situation I was, living in for a while. It's unfortunate, and I still talk to my parents to this day. I still have a lot of trauma from that stuff that I've dealt with, since seen therapy about, talk with them about, and I love them. Then my parents only get one pair, but there's trauma. There's a lot of trauma there, and I remember through the when we were going through the shelter system, the last place we stopped was in Manhattan. And this place, I can't remember what the place was called, but they would do this. You remember Yogi Bear?
Yeah.
They would do this Yogi Bear like activities for all of the kids and parents who were living in the shelter. So like you were like who can fold a sheet the fastest, and you win prizes. And then also like they gave us like teaching us how to swim at the YMCA and stuff like that. And then there also, for the shelter kids, was a summer camp that we would go to somewhere in New York. I don't know. But me and my brother went. My brother's a year younger than me, went to this camp. And my oldest brother was too old. All my other siblings were too young. So me and my brother went. And we each section, like, or dorm room, like had to do literally the first day had to do a talent show. And this, I was in the second grade, second grade. I was in second grade because we had just moved out of the Bronx. So yeah, I was in second grade. And they were like, all right, so all of the guys, you have to do something. There's another girls thing. They do something, all these different, like 4 or 5. So I was talking to my brother, and I was like, well, we always sing Boys to Men at home. Maybe we can teach all of them Boys to Men, and we'll sing it together. We'll do a talent show. And I asked the camp leader. They said, yeah. So we did that. I sang I'll Make Love to You was the first song I ever sang in public. And of course, I did all of the solos.
Okay. All through the night. Okay.
Yeah. And like everybody was like cheering for me, the screaming, and all the lady like, oh my God, sing, boy, sing, all, and I was like, the rush. I still remember what that felt like, and that sense of release and joy that I had. And then they were placing us too. So I'm waiting, like, I was like, okay, it was great. And then we got second place. And I cried so bad. I ran off to my little bed, cried, and I was like, this is not fair. Like, and then literally my teacher came in and said, like, don't worry, like, their house, it was the girls, they did like a little dance. They do it like they do the same dance every year, and they said they always win. She was like, they always win first place. It's okay, don't worry about it. Blah, you were beautiful. But after that, even though I cried and I was sad, I hadn't felt joy like that yet in life. And so I just started singing all the time. I wanted to be an R&B singer. I wanted to be the next Boyz II Men. I wanted to do that. So I would just like sing in the house with my brothers and my cousins and stuff. We would start singing songs 112, blah 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 blah. It was cool. And then I moved to Virginia. My grandmother was like, "Yeah, I got to get out of there. The school systems were terrible, all that stuff." So we moved to Virginia. We moved to Holly Cove in Chesapeake. So it's on Airline Boulevard, but it's like the most racket place in Chesapeake. Because Chesapeake is gorgeous, affluent,
Yeah.
beautiful. I went to a great schools. The schools in Chesapeake were great, but I lived on the one strip that because it was like I was like in Chesapeake. It's weird how it works. So I was like in the Chesapeake, but to the left and to the right was both Portsmouth, and so I was just on this whole strip of Airline Boulevard that was just like terrible. But I met this kid who was getting bullied at the bus stop. And, I was the big kid from New York. So, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, all right, y'all, like, calm down. Like, come on, like, don't do that, And everybody left him alone. And this kid, man, he started following me around. I was like, what's wrong, man? Why is this dude following me around? And he's like, yo, come to my house, blah, blah, blah. We can play video games or whatever. And so I said, okay, sure. So he lived, actually, there was a whole big complex. So I went to he was staying in a house out there. So I went to his house. His mom and his older sister and his grandma all lived there. His name was Sean Savage. Shout out to Sean Savage.
Hey, Sean.
And we were in his house chilling. A song came on. He started singing. And I did like the little double take. I was like, oh my God, this dude can sing for real, for real. So I was like, I sing too. So we started this whole group duo thing. And then we met this guy named Carl in choir because he was like, yo, you should do choir. So we did choir in 8th grade, started this trio, and like we were like doing it. We like made a little demo, trying to be an R&B group. It was
doing that thing, honey.
On that thing. But it was short-lived, didn't really get anything come out of it. But Sean, he super talented. Talk about growing out of his geekiness. Dude was like, he was all buff. And like we got high school out completely. He's all buff and ripped and all this stuff. It was crazy. In high school, but he started doing Governor School for the Arts. And I was a sports kid. Actually, we both did sports, but he was so musically inclined, played instruments, all of these things. So he started going to Governor School. I was playing football, basketball, all that stuff. That was my thing. I was like, okay, this is going to be the way that I, get out of the situation. Go to college, whatever. I might not be great, might not go to the pros, but I can at least go to college, get a degree. You know what I'm saying? Blah blah blah. So he was at Governor School for the Arts in Norfolk, Virginia. Excuse me. And then he was like, man, we don't see each other after the first year. He was like, we don't see each other. I was actually struggling at the time at school. I was like skipping school a lot. Like I was just like at home, it wasn't great. I had failed 2 classes because I missed too many days. And so like I was like on the verge of not playing sports anymore because like my GPA, I'm talking about like I had like a 1.9 or something. It was crazy. It was bad. Yeah.
Well,
and I just wasn't going to class. Except for choir. I was going to choir. But he was like, man, maybe you should just like apply, for Governor School and see what it is, see what it's like. Long story short, I know I'm going on and on, but I started that. He taught me Sebe Crudele.
Yes.
Saying that, like Sebe Crudele, real bad, high school style, 14-year-old style. And I got in. I was super happy to get in. Got in, went, then found out that they were doing like full-blown operas because he took me before to go see Rigoletto. They were doing a Virginia opera, so like I sat into one of his rehearsals. That was crazy. And then because a lot of the kids from Governor School would sing in the chorus at Virginia Opera back in the day. I don't know if they still do that or not. But I got there, found out they were doing full-blown operas, theory class, oral skills class, history. I was like, what? I thought I was going to like an advanced choir. I mean, literally. But I was like doing like advanced choir. I get to leave school, 3 hours early, you know, and like, you know, and then like some schools, like some classes I were forgiven, like I didn't have to take like gym and all that stuff anymore. But I hated it.
You hated this. You hated the governor's
I
school
hated governor school.
because you had to do that
I had
work,
to do
honey.
all that work to sing. Like when I was singing R&B music, we just sang. We would sit down together, think about some lyrics. You know what I'm saying? You know, come down. Like I mean, I took work. You know what I'm saying? Coming up with that style. You know, harmonizing together. But you know, that was like organic. With this, I was like, okay, I got this piece of music. How do I read this music? How do I learn? You know what I'm saying? How do I play the piano? Like what? And then I gotta like read it. I'm in class, like doing do, right? You know, like all this. I'm like, what? You know, and I was in choir, but it wasn't to this level, you know.
Right.
And so like I was struggling. I got cast in the opera of Figaro. We were doing Notte di Figaro, the whole shebang. Of course, with
Oh my God.
nuts,
In
but
high
English,
school?
high
And
school,
not saying high school. Fierce.
Notte in high school in
Wow.
English. And I was doing Tonio, but I was covering Figaro. I was
Okay.
Yeah, right. And then we have this cross discipline. So they asked me, they were like, well, because I was covering Will Liverman and Ryan Speedo Green.
Now see that. Let me tell y'all, there is a connection
Listen,
happening in the 757.
757.
Okay.
Yeah.
The voice, the folks.
Yeah. So I'm covering these boys. And of course you can see, you know, how their careers are going, like, you know, the talent that was at the school. But you know, I didn't know how to learn music. So like, you know, but I had to show, like I had to do 2 acts of Figaro for the whole entire school. I'm talking about for all of dance, everything.
Right.
But I'm already struggling. I don't want to be there. It was bad. But we took a trip to New York. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try harder to do it. Like I saw some shows at the Met that I hated, and then I saw touring. I saw that it was New York City. I saw one in New York City. Saw one at the Met. Hated both of them. I was like snoring, sleeping, all that. I was like, this is trash. I don't want to do opera. It's boring, whatever. And then I saw Touring Dot at the Met, the Zeffirelli production.
Baby, okay.
That tore my life apart.
OG.
I was like, oh my, if I can do that, I can do that show. So listen, Matt, if you hear me out there, listen, if you ever doing the Zeffirelli production again, call me. Okay, I want to do it. Okay, that saved me right there from sticking with opera. But got back after that trip. I was like, all right, I'm gonna learn, because I was getting kicked out of rehearsal. Because you remember, like, as Sean's best friend, they were like, okay, like this kid is gonna be like Sean. But I wasn't. He was so musically inclined. And you know, doing things, learn the piano, do cassette read. I mean, talking about these kids, 14, 15-year-old cassette read music like crazy. I couldn't do any of that. So like I got thrown into the fire. Like, you know, I wasn't having coachings and lessons like that because they already had 2 that they're already giving coachings to and stuff like that. So I felt a little bit on the back burner, but shout out to all of them. Love you all. Alan Fisher, Robert Brown, rest in peace to my voice teacher. I love you all. Thank you. But it was hard. So like literally I was listening to a recording, you know, and then so like 7, 4, you know, he's measuring and all that, you know, I'm doing all that. But then the recitativo will come and it'll be like, da, 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 blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I can't follow this on a recording. I had no idea. So I would go, like, literally, I'll be sitting in the back praying. Like, I'll be sitting in, like, you know, writing in my book, writing the staging down. Like, they're teaching us how to cover. And there'd be like 10 minutes left. And he'd be like, you know, we have 10 minutes and we're done. Let the covers come up and try. And I'll be like, no, like freaking out, you know?
Yeah.
And so like I'll do the duet, the beginning, the rest of it, a disaster. Go on to the next duet, and it's a disaster. And he's like, well, why don't you know this? And like I'm just kind of like frozen. And he's like, well, you like you have to get it. Like you can't do this. Like if you don't get it together, and like stop rehearsal, basically like got kicked out of rehearsal. And so like I'm just like freaking out, don't know what to do. And it's a lot of pressure on the kid. They put a lot of pressure on us,
That's
but
a lot. I mean,
pressure.
Figaro
Yeah.
at 14, 15,
Yeah.
your
Hip-
mind body changing, you got stuff going on at home. Like,
It was a lot.
that's a lot.
So I sat my ass down at the piano with my friend Sean, and I said, "All right, teach me the notes. What do they mean?" So he's like, "All right, so this C. So we've been doing that, like you've been learning, like this, the C, B. Here's the line on this, the treble clef, the C line, and this, literally." So I sat there like this, with my fingers like this.
Mm.
That's how I learned the recits of Notte di Figaro.
Wow.
First two acts. But yeah, like that on the piano. But when I was sitting there, so I learned it. I was like, listen, I was like, all right. They were like, okay, you need help. So that they of course they helped me through it again. Once they learned that, like, I actually I don't have these skills.
Right.
What I'm saying? I'm not taking this home or like going to a practice room and learn it. I can't do it. I don't know how yet.
Or like having an outside teacher.
Or like I don't have a
Yeah.
piano. They don't know
Yeah.
my situation yet. They don't know like what's going on at home. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not good. Until I talk to them about it. But I remember after working on it, getting it ready to go, and sitting, because I was literally sitting in a chair like this, to my back, with my back to the audience. The red curtain is down, and that same feeling that I had when I was 7 of, oh my gosh, I'm doing this again. That curtain is rising. That rush, I was only feeling happiness and joy.
Mm.
I wasn't horrified. I don't know why I wasn't, but I wasn't. I was just feeling so excited. Like all this, I can't believe I put in so much hard work. And I'm telling you, like, when it was done after Act 2, we did the finale of Act 2, some of the greatest music of all time, that Act 2 finale. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Oh. I'm over here about to cry.
But I never, I worked out. I mean, you can't see it now, right? But I worked out. I mean, like I was lifting weights.
Mhm.
I was, what I'm saying? I hit the iron hard. Like I was training. I was a ball player. I was a ball player, and I knew what it was to work hard. But I had to do that, to do Notte, and then come back a few weeks later and then do Tonio, which was a lot smaller. A lot smaller. Then to do that, to work so hard to sing those 2 acts, I was like, wow, this is worth it. This is worth it. And then I was like, oh, I can go to school. Oh, maybe I can make money. I mean, well, there ain't a lot of money to make. I'm sorry, but I can make something.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. But yeah, it became my first love, my safe place, my safe split, my safe space.
Wow.
And it saved me. I mean, working like that made me start working in a classroom. My junior, senior year, I had mostly, I think, 3.8 and then 4.0. Governor school, throughout my whole entire governor school career, I think I mostly had a 4.0. It changed my life. And then I got to college, you know what I'm saying? but it changed me.
Yeah.
It did. And what music did for me, I'm grateful. And not to forget the people that helped me succeed. This wasn't just me. There were a lot of people rooting me on, believing in me, and believing in my talent. And it takes a village to do what we do.
Right.
You can't do this by yourself. You see all these coaches and everything and all around. It takes a village to do this, and it takes support to do this.
Right.
I can imagine doing this without having the support of my wife, people like Steve, and Marilyn, and all the people, Laura Brooks Rice, people at WNO, people at PBO. I mean, everybody, the support everywhere, all around. People at Governor School, support us all around. And so, that's why I feel like now, like, it's time for me to, like, I'm still young in my career, but like I want to give back. I
Mm,
know what it took for me to even just get here.
right,
But I want to support kids too,
right.
and that's something that's been on my heart lately that this pandemic has taught me. When when I can't sing, I've realized that one of my passions is supporting the next generation. So
Mm.
that's what I got flowing in my brain these days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody take a collective breath. Because that was beautiful. That really, I mean, a that is like the moment that I think a lot of people who come from situations that are not the most positive growing up, there's the most successful people from those situations have that aha moment like Oprah talks about, right? That moment where like that's the catalyst that like pivots your whole life. And then you see like where the moment is, and then you think back of the things that led you to that moment. And it's a bunch of those little teeny things, right? It's the fact that you just happen to move to Virginia in that time. You just happen to talk to that person at the bus stop. You just happen to all of these things that lead you to a moment that pivots your life. and,
Mhm.
the, and I feel like you can track those moments in your life as a whole, in a person's life as a whole. There's these like pivotal moments, right, that happen. And then when you try to like track them back, it's so many little teeny things that affected such a big part of your picture as a person. I just
Yeah.
think that's really beautiful. um so now we know the
Yeah.
history.
A little bit of the history.
Now let's talk about the future, right? So obviously I'm a Black opera singer. Joshua is a Black opera singer. We support other Black opera singers. We support opera singers in general because that's what we love to do, right?
Amen.
Um, but something that's been kind of a topic of discussion, obviously, right now is EDIA, right? Equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. And I feel like we definitely have had, I mean, we've had our own individual encounters with barriers between that. I mean, especially I think something that gets left off a lot is the accessibility part. Like
Absolutely.
the fact that you thankfully were in Virginia at that time and able to be accessible to go to a school
Mhm.
that specialized in arts, right? Like there's many people who don't have that accessibility.
That's right.
Um, and so when we think about these spaces of, this type of work, the idea work, we have to we have to look at those little, like I was just talking about earlier, right? The little moments that lead up to a big pivot. And I think that there's a lot of things happening right now that are little moments leading up to big pivots. And so obviously, if you've seen the show before, you know that I typically ask guests to send in questions, and we then talk about those questions. Also, I want to give a little shout out to everybody who's watching.
Hey,
Hello,
hey.
hello, hello. Thank you so much for being here and supporting What's the Tea with ACP and Mr. Conyers.
Hey, hey.
So, let's see. Let's see. Where should we get?
Where
Because
can
these
we begin?
questions, let me tell y'all, these questions that Josh sent me, I'm almost thinking we may need to do a part two.
Right?
Because the questions alone could be an episode, right? Each
Yeah.
question that he sent me could be its own episode.
Absolutely.
Um, so maybe that's something we'll
When we come
talk
back,
to
hey,
part two.
part two.
But for now, let's start with let's use this time to discuss. I think the kind of most detailed question, which is this: opera. Actually, let me put up a little bit of the question. So, opera is predominantly a white space, while other music forms such as hip hop, jazz, R&B, etc., are predominantly Black spaces. We fight as Black opera singers to carve a space for us in the genre of opera, and But, or however, should we allow white artists to carve out space in black created genres? Can these spaces be equitable or equal? Um, that is a very intense question.
Ooh, ah,
It's a very intense question. So I feel like we should like answer in parts, right? Like 'cause
absolutely.
it's kind of a multi-part question. So the first part is let's talk about how opera is predominantly a white space and other genres of music are predominantly black space. So when you say that, what can you give us like an example of what you I mean obviously we can
Yeah,
see that.
yeah,
But like in your experience, what gives focus to that?
yeah. Well, when so I come from this hip hop R&B like mind frame mindset, and when I think about it, its history and where it began. I think about black artists and what influenced it, of course, like disco music and a lot of other black forms.
Mhm.
And it was created, when it was hip hop. The word hip hop was, created by a rapper who was part of, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five,
Mhm.
right? So like these are like black people creating, and I think about the creation of opera in Italy. And who was it? What was that first one that was lost? Was 1600 like Daphne or something like that by Petty?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was lost. And then Monteverdi and all these white dudes um, that have been created and been dominated by white men today.
Mhm.
This is 1600 to 2021.
Right.
White dominated 400 plus years of domination. Um, and so I just see it, as a white space. Now, I, on the other hand, love this genre.
Mhm.
Um, I want a place in this genre. I believe that me and people who look like me deserve a space in this genre, because I believe that this genre, you know what's the word I'm looking for, it transcends
Mhm.
race. This art, this performing art, this should transcend all of that stuff. It should, it takes you to the next levels about what's on the inside. We go for the heart and the gut and the mind and the spirit, and that's what we reach people, with our voices and the words that are coming out of our mouths, and all of these things. I believe that this art is, it's unique and special, and I believe most art does that. I think, and I ask myself a lot, because I try to stay, in what's going on with pop culture today.
Mhm.
So I try a lot to, and Elliot also helps me with that too. He having a playlist, like, okay, this is the new thing that's popping
Well,
right now, and I'll be like, all right, let me listen to that. I'm gonna check that out, and then I have my artist that I listen to now, hip hop. I love hip hop music. It's just that's what I do. That's what I love. Um, and I think about like when I was a kid, and hip hop music, my favorite artists. And my favorite artists were always the ones who like talked about their situations and their struggles, like at home, but like aggressively. So like my two favorite artists as a kid was DMX and Eminem.
I'm gonna say that.
DMX and Eminem, right? And Eminem is a white dude. I mean, white blonde head dude.
Right.
And he dominated and still is dominating predominantly black space, to the
Mhm.
dismay of a lot of black people.
Mhm.
And like sometimes, like when you talk about, cultural appropriation, how should I be, as a black man in America, how should I feel about my love for this white guy who spoke to me,
Mhm.
spoke about his pain and anger about his mom. He says some like a lot of outrageous, crazy, like stuff that like I mean, off the wall nonsense. I won't even get into. It's obscene, a lot of obscene stuff. But he spoke to me from that sense of his pain, of his home life, what he went through, and I felt that.
Mhm.
Same thing with DMX.
Mhm.
He was talking about God, his struggle with God, his struggles at home. You felt the pain in his voice.
Mm.
That voice is so special and unique, and the pain, and like that's what I gravitated towards. Um, and so I always ask myself, like, okay, this guy, people, like this, like, how is this white guy, because we live in America, majority of white people, they, they have the buying power to push a white rapper to make him the most sold, have the most records in hip hop history,
Mm.
and, is that right? And then I think about myself, and then I go, this is a white space, and there's a lot of beautiful black singers, throughout, who have paved the way for us all. Leontine Price and all of the wonderful, amazing artists that can go on, even them today. And I go, you know, should like, you know, of course we know we can't cultural appropriation is about dominant,
Right.
majorities taking over, control over, minority cultures and stuff like that. But sometimes I just can't help but to feel like I'm not in a space that, first of all, not necessarily like wants me to be here, but that's just not, hasn't been written for me to fit into.
Mm-hmm.
So I keep going until like now that's why my mindset is like, I want to be in this genre. Do we need to start creating our own spaces, right? Even think about segregation. Back in the 50s, 40s, 50s, 30s, all that stuff, there were a lot of black owned businesses, out of necessity. We had to make our own black things,
Right.
black communities, large sections of people living together. And we got together, like, but a lot of times they weren't equal. We didn't have, equitable things and different stuff like that. We started to integrate, which is great, which I believe in. But a lot of those spaces started to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those intrinsically black spaces have suffered. And I just believe that as black people in opera, we have to start, just like, we have to start creating our own space, as well as integrating into opera, and the people with powers to be, stop being prejudiced, look at themselves in the mirror and say that we have the talent to be that, but not only just relying on them. Like, and so I'm asking myself, what am I doing to help create spaces for black minorities in opera to create without the worry about, oh, I don't know if I got this just because I'm black.
Mm.
That feeling is crippling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I got this job because I look around me, there's one of me,
Right.
or here's the black show. And
Mm.
like, I'm here doing this, but I know that in a few months they want me to do that black show. So is it because I'm doing all, and that, of course that's like, you have to change our mindsets and all that stuff, but you can't help it sometimes when that's the case.
Right.
So like, we have to start, I believe, creating our own spaces in opera, to start, start building that bridge.
Right. So maybe it's not necessarily like a thing of carving out your own space in a genre, but maybe it's creating a space to link together
For
and
sure.
have a walkway between, right?
Yeah.
That uses the same building materials, but with a different, two different ways of building, same building materials, or two different, workers, same building materials with a tie together in the middle.
And don't get it twisted, audience. Like, I'm not for like breaking us apart.
Mhm.
If you look on the back here, I'm married to a white girl. So I'm not about that. My kids are going to be white. But we have to start thinking like entrepreneurs, start thinking about legacies and building things that will last for generations and generational wealth. Black America's buying power now is large. It is. And we start focusing those dollars into things that will last for generations, we will have something to hold on to and grasp to it. And that's why I think a lot of, we talk about cultural appropriation and black. I mean, I know, listen, there is no section, of a people in America when some negativity. That's why I think like a lot of minority groups are on the backs of black people because we get up, we rise, and we say when there's an injustice, we go and we fight for that injustice. And that's we've dealt. And so like when somebody entrenches on our territory, we get up in arms. We see a white person in our space trying to like take over, and maybe they appreciate the space, right? And they say my my person, my inspiration is this black person, that black person. And someone's like, nah, y'all have pillaged and taken away too much from us for you to try to get into our space. Right. And so sometimes I feel like that might be a little counterintuitive because we want to get into more spaces that weren't created by us. And I feel like we should be a little more giving and a little more, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard when things are taken. Like I was sorry, but I was thinking about Bruno Mars, right? And we think about R&B music, hip hop R&B music. It's a black thing. You think about Patti LaBelle and Aretha Franklin, and so far people I grew up with, Joe. Unfortunately, R. Kelly, shame, disgusting. You should be in jail. But just like R&B music like that. And you think of a guy like Bruno Mars who's Hispanic, and there's this huge discussion of can other minorities cultural appropriate, and like he's one of the biggest selling now in R&B music. He won like 6 Grammys a couple years ago. 20. I love that album. I thought it was fantastic. But I think sometimes we forget that that black spaces, stuff that we created, are like multicultural. Hip hop music was started by what's his name? What's the DJ's name? Crap, his name is DJ Kool Herc. DJ Kool Herc.
I'm glad you won't ask me because I didn't know.
He's but he's from Kingston, Jamaica. He's an immigrant. He got his American citizenship. It was started there, and then like there's there's a lot of Latin, and there are all of these pioneers. It's very multicultural, Jamaican, heavy influenced, Latin music, and these are the basis now that we see like a lot of like gangster rap and like experiencing like what it's like to live in the streets as a black person. It was about the break and about break dancing. And hip hopping, and I mean that's the origin of hip hop, and so it's very multicultural. And so they go like somebody like Bruno Mars, who they say, oh, he's not black, he shouldn't be doing this, these things, and we like, we hold on, which I understand. I hold on to things too because we have been robbed of our culture. Robbed of our language. I don't know where I come from.
Right.
I don't. And so I get it. But I know like we always feel like we have to like give out our hand first, like reach out our hand and say, come into, and like it's time for white people to like start reaching out their hands and saying like, come on into this space, be more inclusive. White people, be more inclusive. I don't believe that our way should be like, nah, give me it back up, and Bruno Mars is Latino, and Dominican, a lot of African descent, like he black, so like I feel like it's time now, more time than ever, that like all of these spaces, we should be coming together trying to figure out the way to bridge these gaps. And if that takes us making our own space and saying like, we're going to do this and we're going to build it, we're going to use our money and our resources to do it, then I'm all for it.
That's great. I mean, I feel like the main hard part about this question is the fact that opera the reason why opera is considered a white genre is because it was started by white people,
People, yeah.
right? Like it was started by the aristocracy of whiteness. And so over the years, I mean, obviously it's from the 1600s to now, that has changed sort of. But compared to other genres who maybe haven't even lasted as long, that have switched the way that they function, I mean, we know that this is like the oldest singing genre, like that has carried on throughout history, that is still performed today. Um, but it is amazing how the space still feels like a white space, right? It still feels like I'm a black opera singer going into this white space instead of I'm an opera singer going into this space. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that. Sometimes, it just feels like I'm going to work. But sometimes in different situations, depending on what company, depending on who, especially the director is, who the
Mhm.
conductor is, who's working around you, you feel like, you know, all eyes are on me because I'm the only one,
Yeah.
and I don't know about leave like carving out space in black genres for whiteness. I think that it's just going to happen anyway
Yep.
because that's what it is, and
That's what
I
it is.
feel like as we continue to grow as a culture and as the world continues to grow as a culture in whole, I think that crossing over into different spaces is important, right?
Yeah.
Crossing over into different cultural spaces is important. But the main part of it is you have to acknowledge where it comes from,
That's right.
right? Like even opera, like we acknowledge that it was created in the 1600s. The people who were writing the operas weren't rich per se, right? They
Mhm.
were like poor ass people who the aristocracy was like, write me an opera, or well, I'll kill you. You know what I mean? It's not like it was like, I mean, you have to acknowledge these things, and see where they come from. And the only reason we have had to create our own genres is because we weren't let into the doors of the genres that were created by white people. And we didn't have the opportunity to have our own genres of music because we were taken from the space that we were creating those genres. That was our, you know what I mean? We didn't have a chance as products of the enslaved African people
Mhm.
to create our own. And so now I think we have this like we have this kind of like, well, now we can, and we got to do it, and we got to keep it to ourselves. And because we didn't have, it's basically like we didn't have a chance for 400 years to
Mhm.
create our own stuff. We didn't have a chance to build up a space of wealth or a space of informed practice or anything like that. And so now it's like basically it's like you're starving these no, I was gonna say children. Oh, you're starving these people for years and years and years, and they finally are able to get out of the cage of starvation and start preparing their own food and bringing their own produce and bringing their own products. And then the same people or relatives of the same people come in and try to also eat what you just cultivated yourself, which you weren't even allowed to cultivate, right? So then it feels like you expect me to give you some of my corn that I grew in my garden,
And you think
you
about,
know?
yeah, and you think about the struggle, because if you think about America and American history, right?
Mm,
And the music creations that came out of America, 120 years of that has been black music, off the backs of
mhm,
black people and black music.
mhm.
Swing music to jazz to
Jazz,
country to
folk,
folk music.
all
It's
the
all black. These are
mhm,
all black people. So it's like the pillaging is real.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Elvis stealing black folks' music is real. I'm sorry, y'all, but it's true.
Okay, Dream Girl. I've got me a Cadillac.
Hey, Dream Girls.
Listen, that's a real thing, and I feel like
It's real.
sometimes we get a bad rep. I think as black, I'll say as Black American people, that when we create something, we hold on so tightly to it because for so many years we haven't even had the opportunity to create something to hold on to.
That's right.
You're just grasping for what we can get because another set of people oppressed another set of people.
That's right.
And that's just sad. And we have to, as a world and as a country, acknowledge that. That's the only way you can move on through an experience is to acknowledge what you did wrong, not to say, well, I'm sorry that you felt like, and
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that no, you say, I'm sorry that I hurt you. I shouldn't have hurt you. My ancestors shouldn't have hurt you. And then it's like, well, then what do you do? That's where equity comes in,
That's right.
right? Equity is the space of because this group of people has not had the same resources, whether it be financial, educational, whatever it is, then you provide a resource to help them a little bit more than someone else who comes from a space that isn't like that. And it doesn't have to be a black or white issue. It doesn't have to be an issue of race. I mean, this comes in any shape and fashion, right?
Absolutely.
It's a short person giving them a footstool so that they can see over the fence.
I
Right?
love that image.
That image, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is, right? It's not like we're on the same stool so they still can't see over the fence. It's giving them a little bit of a taller stool so that they can be over the fence so that we can be in an equitable space. We can be equals. It's not equality, it's equity. And that's the
right.
difference. So
Right.
I want to just really quickly touch on this topic because the other question was, can black people just be opera singers or do we have to be black opera singers? And I feel like we kind of touched on that in a way that is like we want to just be opera singers, but the space was not created and still sometimes does not allow us to feel like we are just there to do our jobs.
Yeah.
It sometimes feels like we are there to represent a culture. We are there to be the best. We are there to be all of the things that get impounded upon us because you feel like you have to be the best in order to succeed. And for years, you did have to be the best.
But not even the best. You're talking about like twice, 2 times.
Right. Like the greatest.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't think, frankly, a lot of our white colleagues have had to feel that same amount of pressure, maybe for other things, but to feel like the weight of a race is on you. And yes, we put that on ourselves a little bit, but you kind of have to because you're the only one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're the only one there in the space, when there is no director or conductor or administrator who is there to make sure that the space is equitable, like you have to feel like now, like, okay, I can sit back and not say anything or do anything, or I can speak up, or I can say, okay, this is not right, or this is not right. There's a lot of weight and pressure on trying to get things to be equitable when you're by yourself, when you're sitting in that rehearsal room by yourself. Somebody says something inappropriate or does something inappropriate, like, what do you do? I mean, a lot of people in that, women deal with that a lot too, in spaces like that. But as a black person, it's like you feel like that weight is on your shoulders, and it's unfortunate too. But you look at it, you see a show on TV, some black people, they might be acting out or doing something crazy, and then that's automatically how black people act. Like you see white people been acting crazy since 1,000 years, pillaging, taking, but that doesn't define them. We go there, can be a shooting, a gang shoot up, some black people in a gang shoot up something, and then that defines all the black people.
Right.
And that's the culture and and the situation we live in. So we're trying to prove, oh no, like we're upstanding citizens. Oh, we're law-abiding citizens. We have to prove this. Oh no, I have to prove that. Like, oh no, like I can be good with my languages. Oh, I can be a good, I can sing as well as that. I can, I can do that. I can move around the stage. I can understand the culture. I can walk in this way too. And like, listen, like Black people can do this too. And we have to have that on our shoulders constantly.
Right.
And these opera companies need to ask themselves, what are they doing to make sure that we don't have to do these things?
Right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's really statistics. If you have 10 people in a room and one of those people is Black, anything that the Black person does is going to get highlighted even more. It's either going to get highlighted or it's not going to get noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because all the rest of the people in that room are white. If
Yeah,
you have a white wall and
yeah.
you have one spot on it that's different than the white wall, you're going to notice that spot.
That's right.
And
Also,
the spotlight goes on you.
yeah, and when even if you say something that you feel like it's like, oh, like no, I don't think that's, but they don't have that experience or understand that experience, and then you have everybody else who goes like, no, what do you mean? What are you talking about?
Right.
How can what you say have any validity or weight in the room? Especially maybe you might have some people who are sympathetic to the situation, or try to understand where you're coming from, but that's a scary place to be in, to be like, oh, maybe that person an ally, and maybe not even your Black person might be your ally, but
Right.
at least that there is some leeway there, especially when you're talking about cultural things or cultural issues.
Right. Well, last question is, what does an equitable opera company look like? I can tell you what it doesn't look like.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like blind auditions. I'll
Oh
tell you that. And let
Lord.
me tell you why. So the issue for me at first, okay, let me backtrack. So I at first was like, yes, we should do blind auditions because then you can't see what the person looks like. It's all based on just the voice, right?
Absolutely.
And then I had to, after thankfully talking with colleagues and learning more, I had to say, wait a minute. Why should that matter? Why do we need to have a veil, a curtain to cover up what someone looks like in order for them to get treated equitably, and equally, and with care and respect and dignity?
Yeah.
That's not a me problem. That's a you problem. The fact that you, as a person who's listening to me, have to listen with a barrier in order to believe that I deserve to do whatever it is that you want me to do is a problem.
Yeah.
And I think that, some companies have thought, well, if we do, totally blind auditions, then like that creates equity, right? And it's like, no, because you're not actually treating the problem. You're putting a band-aid on it.
On the problem.
You're not actually like treating it at the root of the source, which is the fact that the people sitting at your table would have a bias against the people that are singing on the stage. And yeah, there's other aspects to it. Maybe it's like what you look like, that's not your race, or what maybe the way I don't know, child, the way you walk, girl. I mean, you might have a little extra wiggly or giggle, and they don't like that. But the thing is, like, why not? Why not? What is the problem? If you would take me behind a screen for just my voice, then you should take me as me standing in front of you for just my voice. There's no difference. The only difference is your biases aren't being put to light.
That's true.
That's the difference. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's this blind audition thing is funny because that's not what opera is.
Right.
Sorry, because if it was just about the voice, half of the people on stage wouldn't be on stage. That's not the truth. Let's be real.
That is tea. That is at the highest levels. That is tea.
That's not real, and it's bullshit. Um, it takes a lot to be an opera singer and the things that we have to do. Um, and people biases at the highest level is absurd.
Mm.
You know, it's like, I mean, I've gotten to my face emails from people just like, "Oh, you're one of the best voices I've heard," or, "I love you. You're great. But you need to like lose weight
Mm.
in order if you like want to like be on my stage again." You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, opera companies are at the, I mean, like at the, like some, they say like they get complaint. Like I know like some people get complaints, like literally from donors writing in saying like, why was that person so fat on your stage? And like, they're so beholden to that.
Mm.
Um, that and then their own biases of what, okay, this woman has to look like this, or
Mm.
this character has to be this, or
Mm.
this, when a lot of the time it's make believe.
Right. It is all of it.
It's make believe.
It's
It's bizarre. But like also like, oh, the love entrance, the woman can't be this tall, he can't be this short, he can't be this big. Like, oh, you can't be a love interest. Like you're 6'4" and 400 pounds. But last time I remember when I was in college and I was in high school, I never had an issue getting a girl. Never,
Period. Pooh.
never. I'd be confused.
Okay.
I'd be confused. Oh, like, oh no, I don't know. Like, you couldn't be the Count Amaviva because, like, like, oh, I couldn't find a costume. You won't look good in that costume, or blah blah blah. But royalty back in the day, a sign of royalty was being a big person.
Mm-hmm.
That means that you ate well. You ate well. That's what you did. You look good. Like and I'm royalty.
Okay. Period.
I'm royalty. What you mean? I look like I eat well. Have fruit. So it's just, I mean, and that's just like body image and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, opera has a lot of work to do to make opera equitable. Well, I mean,
also just like the music industry in general has a lot to do.
I mean, yeah, who runs?
It's getting better, but
Yeah, but who runs music labels? My brother started a music label that I'm being a part of. Like we're trying to,
mm-hmm.
and we're learning that business too. We're trying to get in that too, and that's a hard business to get into, and but that's white. That's white. Oh, I mean, who owns black music? White people.
Mm.
Who owns the masters to these music? When they die, when that artist dies, and then their music is being sold all over, you hear it on a commercial, you hear it in like 10 different songs. Who's getting that money? It's not most of the time. It's not the artist who created the song. So it's like, I mean, that, like I said earlier, like we got to start thinking about ownership. Or, I know this ownership thing is a bad word, right? We're trying to get rid of that, but governorship over our stuff.
Well, like autonomy.
Absolutely. Autonomy. I love that. Autonomy over these things, over our art, over what we create.
Right.
Because sometimes somebody will go like, listen, I give you $100,000. You sign that contract, like I'll give you that. And what you gonna do when you have nothing?
Right.
And it's unfortunate, but a lot of times you're trying to eat,
right,
and take care of your family, and they'll put you in a situation and take you and pillage you. I don't think that black people in America are still not being pillaged. We still being pillaged today. There's not a lot of black people who still own a lot of things. Like I'm still trying to like get out of like talking about like renting. I'm still trying to own my own house and do all these things, But sorry, off track. But let's get back to opera. I've worked with one black director, one assistant conductor. He wasn't just assistant conductor, who was fabulous. But assistant conductor, he wasn't conducting the show. never have seen or work with a GM or an AD that was of color in an opera company,
No.
or a director of operations, or one person who worked in like administration, like in administrative office.
Mm.
One, I mean, I'm just talking about of color, not just black, of color.
Right.
It is a problem. And then they go I'm going to do Porgy and Bess and Blue, also operas that weren't written by black people. Let's just throw that out there. Great pieces. Love them. We'll sing them. I think they're fabulous, and I think that them giving their art, trying to make spaces for black people, is an honorable thing.
Mm.
I really do believe that. And shout out to Janine and Gershwin and all that, right? For doing that, because it was needed, and thank you. But there's still, and Tazwell who was the librettist. He's a black man still who's a part of it. Still led and written, by white people in our space. And we have to do something about that too. And giving spaces for this to happen. And so, like, what they have to, like, we are out there. I'm sorry. We are out there. There are a lot of us. We're plentiful. And most opera companies are in these rural, I mean, not rural, but like in these like places, the urban areas with so much diversity. And your audience is 90% white. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? How are you reaching out?
How are you stamping the stigma of whiteness in opera, of wealth in opera, of inequality in opera? What are you doing as a company, as a brand, as a business, to eradicate the thought that if I tell someone I'm an opera singer, they go, opera?
Yeah.
I thought like only white people did opera, or opera. I would never go to an opera. It's kind of, the tickets are probably so expensive. Or opera, I've never even heard. I don't even know what an opera.
Yeah,
what is an opera?
Yeah.
What are you as a company doing to help that? It's going to help you as a business.
I don't get
Hello.
Don't get
to
it.
do that, and I think that it has a lot. It has a lot of. It's a lot of like. It's a lot of thinking that like, well, we're doing outreach, and it's a lot of, well, we are doing this new black opera, and really it needs to be, well, we are going into communities and engaging those communities and saying, this is what opera is just a story through music sung with a different type of vocal technique. That is opera.
Mm-hmm.
And to say, okay, well, if my tickets are $300 for a second tier seat, if not more, why don't we have a couple of nights? I mean, obviously this is big business, but I have a strong suspicion that if you cut the sale of ticket prices in half for 2 weeknight shows, you're going to make some kind of profit, and you're going to inspire more people to come in. And then those people will tell people, well, I actually went to this like random opera the other day, and like the tickets were only like $50. Like, that's a hour and a half new opera with a $50 ticket can bring in many more people than a 4-hour opera that costs $300 for a ticket. Hello. And so especially in our time period now, right? Like, operas were invented originally because bitches had time. People had time. They didn't have what else were they gonna do?
Yeah.
What else was there to do? Now we move faster, right? We're a fast economy, and we have to start the change of embracing people fully for 100% of themselves. like so many of these opera characters do, actually. Embracing people for 100% of themselves and saying, we're open to you, our doors are open to you, please come in and enjoy. That's the only way we're going to grow, and that's the only way that companies can become equitable.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
Not
and
the
it's
only way, but a main way.
I'm also like sick of opera companies thinking that the equitable way is to like, okay, we need to do this black show
Mhm.
that 1 year, and then like we're showing that we have black people on the stage,
Right.
but and it's like, and like, okay, but that's equity. Like we did that, like, what I'm saying, like we're putting black people on the stage, but it's like, no, if you can put a white girl in dreads singing Omneris,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying, and go like, and like, first of all, that's like inaccurate of what an Egyptian was supposed to look like. But if you can do that, then you can have black people doing whatever European
Mhm.
singing role, whatever you think that is, in these roles. It's
Right.
not about saying, okay, yes, I mean, it is great that you want to, okay, we're going to do this new black show. We're going to do this old black show, put black people on stage. But it's like, you need them throughout the season.
Right. Because
If
we
you
can
have white
see
people,
everything.
yeah, if you can have white people all throughout your season, you can have black people all throughout your season singing anything, singing Mozart, singing
And you can
Monteverdi.
have them together.
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
I've literally, except for a show that's specifically based on race, that's like half white and half black,
Mhm.
I don't think I've ever seen an opera that has a cast that is half and half, from the chorus to the lead singers. I don't think I've ever seen an opera that is culturally diverse at a 1/3 option. You get what I'm saying? Like, I literally have never seen it, and that to me is crazy.
And if
Crazy.
Joe Biden can do it, y'all can do it.
Ooh, come on, Kamala. Okay.
I'm just saying. It's
It's important.
it is. It's like representation is important. Make your stage look like America. Yes, whiteness is 60%, right? Somewhere around there. White
Mhm.
people, 60% who identify as white in America. That's 40%. Where's the 40%?
Right. Because right now it's giving 4%.
Yeah. What are you doing? 40%. What are y'all doing? What is happening?
Right. Foster the relationships at a young age if you want some
Nurture.
advice. Support the people who are not given the opportunities. Support them and help them grow so that within the next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, we can have what we're asking now. Because we've been talking about it. People have been talking about it. But the sad part is they didn't feel comfortable enough or have a platform to be able to say, you're wrong.
Yep. That's
and you
over
need
with.
to change.
That's over with.
And so, we all have to accept our wrongdoings. I've done things in my life that I've said the wrong thing or experienced the wrong thing, and I've had to apologize and say, I'm going to make steps to change this. And I have. And as a good business model, it may seem scary, to be diverse or equitable or inclusive or accessible. Scary. But it comes down to the point of, do you even have, this is like not even dealing with race, but like, do you even have a handicap accessible restroom in your facility?
Yeah.
And if you don't, why don't you? Because you just haven't cared enough to make that an effort strong enough to make it happen. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of space. And we could talk about this forever.
Oh no. We can go.
But let me tell you another thing about Mr. Josh here. He is a sports fanatic. Okay,
What's happening at 3? Okay, we gotta wrap this up. Okay,
so we're gonna wrap up. But I really think that maybe we should do a part 2.
Yeah.
And since we already got to know you a little bit, your backstory, maybe the next time we can, kind of follow up on some of these questions, because one of the questions has like a 2-part, and one of the questions got left out actually.
Okay.
So maybe we could do like a part 2. You come
I'm
back with
ready.
us, and
I'm down.
we can discuss more and really get into the meat and potatoes.
That's right.
And maybe, yeah, we'll talk. We'll
Yeah,
chat.
for sure. For
Um,
sure. I'm always here. I'm always ready to be on What's the Tea with ACP. Okay, I love it. I love it. Y'all doing it on here.
and I want to say, I know we're kind of abruptly wrapping up, but you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you so much for being open and honest and filled with hope and filled with um, a space of listening and learning, but also teaching. Um, we need more of that, and you're doing that. And I appreciate you for it. And I appreciate you giving us your time, giving us your effort, giving us your space. And I appreciate you being in our space as well. And I just want to say thank you so much for
No,
being a part of the show today.
no, thank you, Elliot. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. And thank you for letting me share what I have to say. I appreciate it. It's platforms like these that we need. So thank you for sharing with me, letting me be open on here. What's the tea?
With ACP.
That's
Thank you for
right.
watching. So I'm gonna give a little outro, but hang out backstage. We'll chat. All right. Thank you all so much for watching What's the Tea with ACP today. We went a little longer than usual, and I'm living for it, honey. We had a lot to talk about. So I want you to make sure that you check out our What's the Tea with ACP podcast, available streaming everywhere that you can stream your podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, all of the things. There are new episodes weekly on the podcast, and then we come back every other Sunday. So the next episode of What's the Tea is going to be, let me check my calendar, is going to be February 14th, which is what? Valentine's Day. We'll have a little special I love the episode for Valentine's Day. And we again want to thank you so much for coming in and watching and supporting and loving us and letting us be who we are and speak and say what we kind of need and want to say. I'm a grace y'all with that little intro again. Our little ooh, what's the tea? Enjoy it as we leave. Have a blessed day.